She struck his injured leg, expecting a scream. Her dagger shattered. He smiled. Beneath the roaring lights of the Gorgon's Maw arena, the air pressed heavy with sweat and the stench of scorched metal. Every clang of electrified gates and roar of the crowd reverberated through the labyrinthine complex, rattling the bars of Marcus's cell. He lingered in the shadowed corner, his sharp hazel eyes never still. He counted the heavy footsteps of Dravari guards, noted the nervous whispers traded in the gloom, and committed every secret to memory, the only weapons he had left against the dominion that had claimed so many years of his life. Across the churning training pits, Sira commanded the floor. She moved through the haze like a streak of living flame, skin the deep, burnished red of molten iron, hair a wild mane of crimson black that tumbled between her pointed feline ears. Her tail flicked behind her in restless arcs, and her twin daggers glinted at her hips, as much a part of her as the golden eyes that missed nothing. She watched the other fighters with a detached sneer, but whenever her gaze found Marcus, her disdain sharpened. To Sira, strength was all. Marcus's quiet cunning made her skin prickle with scorn. The arena's klaxons blared, red lights strobing across the blood-stained sand. High above, Governor's heir Luther Valen strode onto the overseer's platform, his purple cloak trailing, his sneer promising violence. The crowd hushed, hungry for spectacle. "Bring out the human!" Valen's voice thundered through the amplifiers, silencing even the restless prisoners. He leaned over the rail, eyes locked on Marcus. "Our little troublemaker needs a lesson." His gaze swept to Sira. "Champion of the Ember Ring, you will do the honors. Humiliate him. Show them all what becomes of cleverness without strength." Sira bristled, her tail lashing once, then stilling as she bowed her head in reluctant assent. The order chafed, but she would not refuse. She strode to the ring, every step a silent protest. A guard wrenched open Marcus's cell. He limped forward, a gash staining his trousers, blood seeping down his leg, convincing, even to those who'd watched him survive wounds far worse. He kept his head low, eyes calculating. As Sira entered, the crowd erupted, chanting her name. She circled Marcus, daggers drawn. Her pupils narrowed as she hissed, "There's no honor in this, human. No glory in breaking the broken." Marcus's lips curled in a wry smile. "Honor's a luxury for the free. I'll take survival." His voice was quiet, meant for her alone. They circled, Sira's feet silent as a stalking predator, Marcus swaying on his injured leg. She lunged, a blur of crimson and gold, but Marcus twisted aside, letting her momentum carry her past. He staggered, feigning exhaustion, inviting her in. "Fight me!" Sira spat, her voice raw. She flicked her blade, testing his guard. Or does the human think he can outwit the Dominion again? Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, his gaze never leaving hers. "Thinking's all I've got left. You should try it sometime." High above, Valen's voice rang out, sharp and impatient. "End this, Sira! Make him beg!" Sira's expression hardened. With a snarl, she drove her dagger toward Marcus's wounded leg. There was a flash, a burst of sparks as metal met metal. The blade splintered in her hand. The crowd gasped as the torn fabric revealed not flesh, but a gleaming prosthetic, intricate and lethal. Marcus straightened, the limp gone. "Surprise," he said, grinning. In that instant, alarms shrieked. The arena's force field sputtered and died, the flickering blue shields collapsing with a cascade of sparks. Slave cages burst open, prisoners flooding the sand in a tide of fury. Guards stumbled, weapons drawn too late. Sira, stunned and weaponless, turned just as Marcus grabbed her wrist. "Want out? Come with me." She hesitated, her mind spinning, then nodded, resolve hardening in her eyes. Together they plunged into the chaos. Marcus led them down a narrow service stair, ducking a hail of energy bolts. Sira followed, eyes wide, her claws slicing through the first guard foolish enough to block their path. They darted between overturned tables and toppled statues, slipping through a service hatch into the maze of the underbelly. In the darkness, the world shrank to the sound of their breath and the pulse of danger at their backs. They navigated twisting corridors, Marcus guiding with practiced assurance, Syrah covering their rear. In a cramped utility shaft, Marcus noticed blood running down Syrah's arm. "Hold still," he murmured, pulling a stolen medkit from his belt. He pressed a sterile patch to her wound, his hands gentle despite the urgency. She gritted her teeth but said nothing, instead reaching for his shoulder where a burn scorched his tunic. Her claws were deft, her touch unexpectedly soft as she wrapped the burn. For a moment, their hands lingered. Their eyes met in the pale light, distrust and gratitude mingling in the silence. "Why help me?" Syrah finally asked, voice rough. "Because you're more useful free than caged," Marcus answered. "And I don't believe you like Valen any more than I do." They slipped through the tunnels to a rusted hatch. Marcus tapped out a code on a hidden panel. The door hissed open, revealing a cramped storeroom stacked with weapons and gear. Inside waited a wiry Narek with patchwork gray fur and nervous, darting eyes. Patch. "Took you long enough," Patch chittered, checking the charge on a blaster. "The whole place is coming apart." Marcus moved to the terminal, fingers flying over the controls. "I need full access to the comms. Lock out the Dominion frequencies." Syrah stalked up, tension tight in her shoulders. "What is this? Who's really behind the riot?" Without turning, Marcus replied, "Commander Raxon wanted to embarrass Valen. I intercepted his transmissions. He planned a riot, nothing more. But I gave it teeth. This is our rebellion now." Syrah reeled, the foundation of her world crumbling. The Dominion, her faith in order, meant nothing here. Only survival, only freedom. She looked from Marcus to Patch, then back, searching for certainty. Marcus met her gaze, his voice steady. "We can seize the starport, arm the prisoners, make Gorgon a fortress. But I need your strength and your reputation. You're what hope looks like to them now." For a heartbeat, Syrah stood silent. Then she nodded, shoulders squaring, golden eyes fierce. Against all expectation, she agreed. Outside, the uprising raged on, a world changing in fire and blood. Together, Marcus and Syrah stepped into the storm, not as enemies, but as allies. The starport was chaos. Sirens wailed through plumes of smoke, and the clash of gunfire ricocheted from ferrocrete bulkheads. In the fractured light, Dominion guards in blue-gray armor collided with Raxon's mercenaries in battered leathers, their allegiances as fluid as the battle lines. Somewhere above, an explosion rippled through the docking spires, showering sparks across the panicked crowds. Marcus and Syrah pressed forward, weaving between crates and overturned loaders, their movements a seamless blend of cunning and instinct. Marcus mapped every blind corner and access panel in his mind, recalling hidden passages from years of servitude. Syrah's feline senses cut through the smoke and confusion, ears flicking at distant footfalls, nostrils flaring to catch the scent of ozone and fear. They slipped into the throng, keeping low. Marcus whispered, "Dock 12. Freighters are ticket out." Syrah nodded, eyes narrowed. "I'll clear the path. Stay close." They ducked beneath a sparking conduit, Syrah's tail flicking Marcus's sleeve. Gunfire erupted to their right, guards in pursuit. Syrah pressed her back against a cargo container, signaling for silence. Marcus flattened beside her, feeling the tension in the air. A squad of Dominion troopers swept past, voices tense. "Valen wants the freighters locked down. Nothing leaves. Heard Raxon's men are trying to steal one. Orders? Shoot anything that moves." The squad thundered on, boots pounding the steel. Syrah exhaled, muscles coiled tight. Marcus caught her gaze, the moment suspended. They moved on, ducking through shadows until they reached a cluster of support beams. Suddenly, another patrol rounded the corner, a half-dozen mercenaries, faces grim. Marcus pulled Syrah into a narrow alcove barely wide enough for two. He pressed in, heart pounding, as Syrah's breath ghosted warm across his cheek. Her tail, tense with nerves, curled unconsciously around his thigh, holding him close. Outside, the mercenaries paused. The leader barked, "Check every hatch! No one slips through. Valen's orders." Syrah's claws flexed, but Marcus shook his head, lips barely moving. "Wait." His voice was a whisper, vibrating against her ear. The guards moved on, footsteps fading. Marcus lingered, his hand braced against the wall beside Syrah's head, unwilling to move just yet. He could feel the rapid beat of her pulse through her skin, see the sharp glint in her golden eyes. The air between them shimmered with unspoken things. "All clear," Marcus finally murmured, his voice low and intimate. Syrah's lips curved in the faintest smile. "Don't get used to it, human." He let out a shaky breath, and they slipped free of the alcove, the tension lingering in their wake. The battered hull of the freighter loomed ahead, nestled in Dock 12, a patchwork vessel, its plates scorched and mismatched. Ramp down, engines humming with stolen power. It was salvation and last resort in one. At its base, Patch darted between crates, shouting orders at a ragtag crew, former slaves, dissidents, and defectors all. "Move, move, move! I want thrusters hot and nav plotted 5 minutes ago." Patch's voice crackled with static as he shoved a fuel line into place. Marcus and Syrah sprinted up the ramp, greeted by the tense, hopeful faces of the crew. Syrah surveyed the chaos, then tossed the broken hilt of her dagger onto a crate. "Status?" Marcus demanded, sliding into the cockpit beside Patch. "Shields up but spotty," Patch replied, fingers flying over the controls. "Starport's lockdown protocols are a mess. Someone's jamming comms, but I can punch through for a burst." Marcus nodded grimly, tapping into the comms console. The screen flickered to life, static giving way to his face. He toggled the broadcast to every open channel, his voice steady as he addressed the planet. "This is Marcus, formerly property of the Dravari Dominion. You've been lied to. Valen and Raxon are playing you all for fools, stoking chaos to keep themselves in power. But we're not pieces on their board. Not anymore. Today, we become players." His words echoed through the crowded hangars, crackling across battered speakers and stolen earpieces. Heads turned, the fighting paused in places as hope pierced the confusion. Syrah stepped forward, lifting her broken dagger high for all to see. Her voice rang out, fierce and clear. "They taught us to bleed for their honor. They called it glory when we killed each other for their amusement. But their honor is a lie. True strength is standing together, not kneeling to their chains. Fighters of the Maw, if you want freedom, take it now, with me." For a heartbeat, silence. Then a roar surged through the docks. Fists raised, weapons brandished, prisoners and rebels rallying to her call. The tide had turned. Through the viewport, the planet burned and boiled, civil war erupting across the city as Dominion loyalists and rebels clashed. Marcus coordinated the defense from the comms array, relaying false orders to the enemy, rerouting security droids into ambushes, and sowing confusion in Dominion ranks. "Patch, reroute shield power to the forward batteries," Marcus ordered. "I want a corridor clear to the outer ring." "On it," Patch chirped, tail twitching with excitement. Syrah led the fighters on the ground, voice cutting through the chaos. "Cover the east flank! Push them back! No quarter for slavers!" She fought not for spectacle, but for freedom, her presence galvanizing even the most battered rebel. The Dominion lines faltered, confused by Marcus's misinformation and demoralized by Syrah's rallying cry. Raxon's mercenaries, realizing the tides had shifted, broke ranks, some defecting, others fleeing into the smoke. Valen's fury crackled over the comms, promises of death and ruin that rang hollow now. Suddenly, the command deck's bulkhead slammed open. Luther Valen strode in, flanked by 2 armored guards, blaster drawn, eyes wild with desperation. "You think you can steal my victory?" he spat. "You're nothing, both of you!" Syrah stepped between Marcus and Valen, tail lashing, claws bared. You lost the right to call anything yours. Valen lunged, blaster raised. Syrah moved like lightning. She struck the weapon from his grasp, spinning him with a sharp blow to the jaw. He crashed to his knees, gasping, blood on his lips. Marcus seized the moment, patching the internal comms to the system-wide broadcast. Valen's defeat played across every screen and speaker, his humiliation total. Your heir is finished, Marcus declared, voice cold. Raxon's forces are leaderless. The Dominion's lies are done. Across the city, Dominion banners fell. Raxon's mercenaries melted away, exposed and directionless. The prisoners, now rebels, cheered, hope roaring in their throats. Exhausted, Marcus and Syrah made their way to the battered observation deck, the ship's battered hull creaking beneath their feet. The viewport was cracked, but offered a sweeping view of the city. Flames rose from government towers, but the people were already pouring into the streets, tearing down Dominion symbols, lifting each other up. Marcus leaned on the rail, his breath unsteady. Syrah stood beside him, arms folded, eyes gleaming gold as she watched the new world being born. Without a word, Marcus reached up and traced a scar that ran from Syrah's cheekbone to her jaw. His touch was reverent, gentle. Syrah caught his hand, pressing it against her skin. Then she knelt, her fingers brushing the polished metal of his cybernetic knee. They tried to break us, Marcus said quietly. Syrah's lips curled in a fierce, proud smile. They only made us stronger. Their kiss was slow, lingering, a promise forged in fire and freedom. For the first time, the future was theirs to choose. A year had passed since the Dominion banners had been torn from their moorings and cast into the flames. Now the spire, once the iron heart of oppression, rose over a city alive with voices and new hope. Where slave markets and checkpoints had once choked the streets, open-air bazaars and gathering halls thrived. Children darted past the feet of former rebels, now workers and dreamers. Above them all, the Gorgon Accord fluttered on makeshift poles, a treaty not of empires, but of survivors. The alliance was young, its foundations fragile, but every sunrise brought it a little closer to real. Inside the spire, the council chamber buzzed with arguments, hope, and the friction of hard-won freedom. Marcus sat at the head of the battered table, no longer a captive, but the Accord's provisional leader. His eyes were sharper now, his face lean from long days and longer nights spent threading peace from chaos. He listened as a Dravari engineer and a human merchant locked horns over water rights, fingers steepled, prosthetic knee humming faintly beneath the desk. The doors slid open with a hush of hydraulics, and Syrah strode in, presence filling the room. The ceremonial cloak of the Ember Ring was gone. In its place, practical armor hugged her frame, scratched and burnished from a dozen skirmishes. Her crimson hair was braided back, accentuating the feline lines of her face, and the gleam of purpose in her golden eyes. Even the most obstinate counselors quieted as she approached. Marcus's lips twitched with private warmth. Syrah, you have news? She nodded, laying a datapad on the table. Scout team picked up movement on the outer grid. Dominion convoy, cargo manifests show critical ship parts and a targeting array for their blockaders. Her voice was calm, but tension vibrated beneath each word. If we let them through, the blockade will hold for another cycle. If we intercept, a Narek counselor interjected, voice wary. A direct strike? Their patrols? Syrah met his gaze, unblinking. We go through the asteroid belt. Small team. Stealth and speed, not brute force. We have the advantage of surprise. Marcus stood, moving to Syrah's side. We've studied the route. The convoy's shields will be weakest as they thread the belt of woe. It's risky, but it's a risk we have to take. If we can seize the array, it breaks their stranglehold and gives us a chance to negotiate as equals, not as prey. Murmurs rippled around the table. Marcus and Syrah exchanged a glance, unspoken understanding passing between them. Together, Their unity was a signal, a reminder of what this city had become, what the Accord could be. "Who leads the team?" a Dravari matron demanded, her tone sharp. Sira answered without hesitation. "I will. I know the belt's shadows. Marcus coordinates from here. He's needed to hold the city. But this is my mission." The counselors exchanged looks, reading not just strategy, but trust in the way Marcus's hand found the small of Sira's back, the way she leaned ever so slightly into his touch. Their resolve cut through the bickering. One by one, the council nodded assent. "Make it count," the merchant said, subdued. Sira saluted crisply. "We will." That night, the spire's upper quarters were a world apart from the noisy council floors below. Marcus's rooms had changed too, no longer the Spartan cell of a survivor, but a blend of two worlds. Soft human linens draped the bed. Dravari wall hangings painted shifting constellations across the ceiling. A battered pair of Marcus's boots rested beside a rack of Sira's daggers. The scent of oiled metal and spiced incense lingered in the air. Sira sat cross-legged at the end of the bed, sharpening a dagger with slow, methodical strokes. Her armor was half unbuckled, exposing a web of old scars and new beginnings. Marcus stood behind her, rolling his thumbs gently across the tense muscles of her shoulders, tracing the notches where old wounds had healed. The city's lights flickered through the window, painting golden stripes across the room. "You carry too much," Marcus murmured, kneading a knot beneath her shoulder blade. She tilted her head, a purr threading her words. "You talk too much." He laughed softly, the sound easing the sharp edges of the day. "Comes with the job." She leaned back, letting her head rest against his chest, the steady rhythm of his heart grounding her. The faint hum of his prosthetic leg thrummed through her, a sound she had come to trust. "Tell me your doubts," Marcus said quietly. Sira hesitated, setting her dagger aside. "The convoy will be heavily guarded. If we fail, it's not just a setback, it's a message to the Dominion that Gorgon is still weak. I fear losing more than just the mission." He wrapped his arms around her, voice gentle. "You fear for the Accord." "I fear for us," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "For what we're building. For the people who look to you, and to me. For hope." He pressed his lips to her temple. "Who gives you hope, Marcus?" she asked. He smiled, warmth softening the lines of command. "You do." He drew her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, lingering. She closed her eyes, letting the moment fill her. In the hush, the burdens of leadership faded, replaced by the simple truth of his touch. "You're hopeless," she teased, her tone lighter now. "Always planning, always calculating. One day I'll drag you into a fight just to see you improvise." He grinned, letting her words wrap around him like armor. "And you'd love every second of it." She turned in his embrace, her golden eyes fierce and fond. "Just remember, Marcus, the galaxy doesn't give second chances. We win, or we're dust." He nodded, seriousness returning. "We'll win. Because we're together." Their kiss was gentle, a quiet vow shared in the dim light. A promise that even if the world burned again, they would face it side by side. The tension ebbed, laughter warming the night as Sira ribbed him for his endless council briefings, and Marcus teased her about her ever-growing collection of knives. In that small private space, the weight of titles and wars slipped away. There were no rebels, no leaders, just Marcus and Sira, strong together, ready to shape tomorrow. The next cycle dawned cold and sharp, the spire's shadow stretching across Gorgon's battered skyline as Sira strode onto the bridge of the Ember's edge. The deck hummed beneath her boots, a living thing, restless with anticipation. Crew members snapped to attention, faces taut with focus. Sira paused at the center console, her crimson hair pulled back in a tight braid, armor scorched and mended from battles past. At her side stood Tovin, her second in command, a brack with slate-gray skin and shoulders like quarried stone, eyes steady and unreadable beneath his brow ridges. He inclined his head, voice gravelly. "Strike team in position, Captain. All systems green. We are ready." She swept her gaze across the crew, finding Marcus at navigation. He sat at the holomap, fingers flickering across glowing controls, his jaw tense. Their eyes met, hazel to gold, a silent exchange of hope, fear, and the promise forged in quieter nights. Marcus nodded once, barely perceptible, and Syrah felt the weight of his trust settle across her shoulders like a mantle. She drew a breath, letting it fill her chest with fire. "All hands!" she called, voice ringing clear. "You know the plan. We hit hard and vanish before the Dominion knows what's happened. Remember, every move counts. For Gorgon, for the Accord." A chorus of affirmations echoed back. Tovin pressed the comm, signaling readiness. Marcus keyed in the final coordinates. Syrah's lips curled in a wry smile. "Take us out." The ship shuddered as the engines spooled up, blue plasma surging along the hull. The stars smeared into white gold lines. Syrah gripped the rail, heart pounding. "Jump!" The Ember's Edge leapt into hyperspace, leaving the world behind in a burst of starlight. They emerged in the silent chaos of the Belt of Woe, a graveyard of shattered asteroids, their black forms drifting in slow, lethal ballet. The convoy loomed ahead, 3 Dominion transports, bristling with cannons, flanked by 2 corvettes running cold. Sensor ghosts flickered across the holodisplay. Tovin's voice rumbled, calm as ever. "Shields holding, all teams on standby." Syrah's eyes narrowed. "Marcus, plot the approach vector." Tovin, "Weapons on standby, silent mode only. We go in dark." Marcus's fingers danced across the console. "Trajectory set. Asteroid shadow will mask our signature. As long as we don't break cover, they'll never see us coming." She nodded, adrenaline thrumming. "Strike team, to the pods, on my mark." Minutes stretched like wire as the Ember's Edge slid between tumbling rocks. Hull plating scraped and groaned. The Dominion ships drifted closer, unaware. Syrah's comm crackled. "All teams ready." She bared her teeth in a feral grin. "Go!" Boarding pods launched in silent flares, hugging the shadows. Syrah led her team, Tovin at her side. The pods slammed into the convoy's flagship with bone-jarring force. The hatch blew open, and Syrah surged into the breach, daggers flashing. The corridor erupted in chaos. Dominion soldiers spun, caught off guard. Syrah was already moving, a blur of red and gold, her tail snapping as she ducked blaster fire. Tovin bulldozed through the defenders, his fists breaking armor. The team fanned out, cutting down resistance. Marcus's voice echoed in Syrah's earpiece. "Targeting array is 2 decks up, east compartment. Doors locked. Code incoming." Syrah skidded to a halt at a blast door, breath ragged. "Tovin, cover." He planted himself in the corridor, deflecting fire with his heavy shield. Syrah punched in the code. The door hissed open. Inside, the targeting array gleamed, a cluster of crystalline lenses and humming relays, more valuable than gold. She keyed her comm. "Patch, extraction coordinates uploaded. Marcus, status?" "Corvettes powering weapons. You have 3 minutes, maybe less." Syrah's team tore the array free, stowing it in the armored crate. Alarms blared through the ship. Tovin roared, shoving 2 Dominion guards back through the doorway. "Move!" Syrah snapped, leading her team back to the pod. They launched into the void just as the convoy's guns came to life, lances of energy raking empty space. The Ember's Edge swooped in, bay doors yawning wide, and caught the pods mid-flight. "Get us out!" Syrah barked, slamming the bay shut. Marcus didn't hesitate. The ship spun on a knife edge, engines howling as they dove into the asteroids. The Dominion fired blindly, but the edge slipped between rocks, vanishing into darkness. 1 heartbeat, 2. Then the stars stretched again, and they were gone. Array in hand, enemy bewildered and outplayed. Back on Gorgon, news of the raid swept through the city like wildfire. The Accord's flags fluttered from every balcony, cheers rising in the streets. In the council chamber, old adversaries clasped hands. Children sang rebel songs in the market squares. The Dominion's blockade was broken, if only for a time, and hope kindled in every heart. Syrah returned to the spire at dusk, the ember's edge settling onto the landing pad with battered grace. She strode down the ramp, armor scorched and eyes burning with victory. The crowd pressed close, hands reaching for her, voices chanting her name. She raised a fist, grinning, but her eyes sought only one face. Marcus waited at the edge of the platform, anxiety etched into every line of his face. As Syrah approached, he broke from the crowd, meeting her halfway. He seized her in a fierce embrace, holding her as if he could anchor her to the earth. She laughed, giddy and wild, pressing her forehead to his. "Told you I'd come back, Shadow," she whispered, voice hoarse with spent adrenaline. He cupped her face, searching her eyes. "And you still take years off my life every time." She grinned, teeth sharp. "That's the price you pay for loving a fighter." He silenced her with a kiss, fierce and grateful, his relief trembling in every touch. For a moment the world narrowed to the taste of sweat and smoke, the warmth of her arms, the certainty that they were both still alive. That night, after the crowds faded and the city quieted, Marcus waited in their quarters. He paced the room, replaying every second of the raid, every risk taken. When the door finally slid open, he turned, hope and fear crashing together inside him. Syrah stepped in, peeling off her scorched armor, her hair unbound and wild. Marcus crossed the space in 2 strides, gathering her close. She melted into his arms, laughter bubbling between them as relief gave way to joy. He brushed a thumb across her cheek, voice rough. "I can't lose you." She caught his hand, kissing his palm. "You won't. Not as long as you keep believing." Their lips met again, slower this time. A kiss threaded with all the things left unsaid. Love, relief, the ache of nearly losing what mattered most. The city's lights cast shifting patterns across their skin as they sank onto the bed, the world outside falling away. That night, passion flared between them, fueled by victory, by the dangers still ahead, by the knowledge that every embrace was a risk and a promise. For a few precious hours, they were not leaders or symbols, but simply Marcus and Syrah, strong and whole in the firelight, holding tight to the fragile, fierce future they had claimed together. Months passed in a blur of fire and frost. The Gorgon Accord, once a fragile pact whispered in hidden corners, now stretched its banners across half the city and sent envoys to distant settlements. But the Dominion pressed back with relentless force, raids slicing into supply lines, saboteurs setting fire to water plants in the night, blockades choking off trade. Even as hope smoldered in the hearts of the people, fear flickered at its edges. Marcus and Syrah bore the weight of it all. Each morning began with reports. Another convoy lost, another ally wavering, another promise of aid delayed by Dominion threats. Marcus studied maps and manifests until his eyes burned, carving counter-moves and contingency plans with the patience of a surgeon. Syrah spent her days in the field, leading fighters into ambushes, holding ground in battered districts, her presence a banner of courage that never seemed to wilt. In council, Marcus's voice cut through discord, urging unity. "We cannot splinter now. If we fracture, we invite defeat." He appealed to pride, to memory, to the stubbornness that had built the Accord in the first place. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not. Syrah inspired where strategy failed. She met frightened laborers at the barricades, stood shoulder to shoulder with Narek mechanics in the power yards, trained new recruits until their hands bled and their hearts steeled. "The Dominion wants us afraid," she told them, her voice ringing like tempered steel. Show them we are not. Yet even strength had its limits. They suffered setbacks, shipments gone missing, outposts cut off, trusted lieutenants bought or broken. Each loss left its mark. On long nights, Syrah would return to the spire, armor dented and eyes rimmed red, carrying the scent of plasma and blood. Marcus met her in the doorway, catching her before she could fall. Their love became both shield and chink in their armor. In the rare quiet moments, when the city's hum faded and only the wind rattled the balcony glass, Syrah would lie with Marcus, tracing the scars on his chest and side, old wounds from arena blades, new ones from shrapnel and close calls. "Does it ache?" she'd murmur, her clawed fingers gentle. "Only when you stop touching me," he'd reply, voice soft with exhaustion and affection. Other times, the darkness pressed in from the outside. Syrah's nightmares stalked her, visions of Dominion fire raining down, of comrades dying with her name on their lips. Marcus would wake to her gasping, fists clenched, eyes wide and wild. He soothed her with words and touch, whispering, "You're here. You're safe. I've got you." She would press her forehead to his, letting the sound of his heartbeat ground her, letting the world grow small and bearable again. Their connection was a secret weapon, something neither the Council nor the Dominion could see. It made them fierce, but it also left them raw. The Dominion's anger grew with every Accord success. Sabotage became assassination. One evening, as dusk bled across the city, Marcus and Syrah emerged from a meeting with rebel traitors. The crowd parted before them, but out of the shadows darted a figure, blade flashing. Syrah reacted first, knocking Marcus aside. The blade sliced her arm, not his throat. Marcus tackled the assassin, his prosthetic knee slamming down. The attacker spat curses before swallowing a cyanide capsule, dying with secrets sealed behind locked teeth. Later, after the medics finished, Marcus sat at Syrah's side, his hand trembling as he wrapped her wound. "You're reckless," he muttered, but his voice broke on the last word. She caught his chin, forcing him to meet her gaze. "You'd do the same for me, Shadow." He kissed her knuckles, the gesture desperate. "That's what I'm afraid of." That night, the spire's balcony was a sanctuary above the battered city. The lights below flickered, some lost to sabotage, some burning brighter than ever in defiance. The wind was cool and smelled faintly of ozone and hope. Marcus leaned against the railing, arms folded. Syrah joined him, slipping her tail around his waist. A silent claim, a comfort. They stared out over the rooftops, watching patrols move between shadows, hearing laughter and singing rise from rebel enclaves. Syrah's voice was quiet. "Do you regret any of it?" Marcus took a long breath, feeling the night settle in his chest. "Only that we waited so long." She smiled, slow and genuine, all her fierceness softened by the moment. "You always did take your time." He turned to her, brushing a stray lock of crimson hair from her brow. "I had to be sure you'd save me as many times as you've tried to kill me." She laughed, the sound ringing out over the city, bold and bright. "You're still a fool, Marcus." He grinned, his eyes warm. "But I'm your fool." Syrah pressed her lips to his, their kiss gentle but certain, a promise of tomorrow in a world that tried to steal all certainty. They lingered there, arms around each other, as the stars wheeled overhead, alien, beautiful, and uncaring. The moment stretched until a distant comm unit chimed. Marcus pulled back, his expression shifting as he scanned the message. His jaw tightened. "What is it?" Syrah asked, reading the storm in his eyes. He handed her the datapad. A simple line of text glowed on the screen, but it was enough to send a chill through even her warrior's heart. "Dominion fleet massing, all signs point to full assault. War is coming." She met Marcus's gaze, fear and determination warring in her golden eyes. He took her hand, threading their fingers together. "Then we face it together." Syrah nodded, her grip fierce. We always have. We always will. Below them, the city braced for the storm, and above, the stars bore silent witness to the beginning of a new war. The Dominion Armada arrived without warning, a wall of warships blotting out the stars, their engines rumbling like the promise of doom. Gorgon's sky blazed with the red glare of blockade beacons, and every comm channel crackled with the enemy's demand for surrender. The Accord, battered but unbroken, braced itself for the final battle. In the shadow of the spire, Marcus and Syrah stood before their fighters. The plaza overflowed with faces, former slaves with haunted eyes, grizzled Narek miners, Dravari defectors, wild-haired street kids gripping scavenged rifles. For one breathless moment, the past fell away. All that remained was the unity forged in fire and loss. Syrah strode to the front, armor battered but her posture unbowed. The crowd stilled as she raised her voice, letting it ring across the plaza and through the spire's open windows. "We are not the Dominion's prey," she called, her words fierce and clear. "We are Gorgon, unyielding and unbroken. They came here believing fear would shatter us. Let them learn what it means to face people who have nothing left to lose but their chains." Her tail lashed, gold eyes flashing. The crowd surged, voices roaring in reply. Marcus, standing at her side, felt the old ache of terror, then the greater warmth of pride. He raised his hand for silence. "The Dominion believes this is the end. They are wrong. They underestimate not just our strength, but our hope. Today, we fight not only for Gorgon, but for the right to choose our own future. Hold the line, trust each other. We will outlast them." 1,000 voices answered, a promise echoing to the stars. The battle began at dusk. The Dominion's first wave fell upon the city's outer defenses, artillery slamming into barricades. Syrah led the charge, her daggers flashing silver as she vaulted debris and cut through the enemy's vanguard. Her voice echoed over the comms. "No retreat. Push forward. Show them we remember every name, every wound." Marcus was everywhere at once, orchestrating the defense from the spire's heart. He issued orders, rerouted power to shield grids, and triggered mines buried beneath the main thoroughfares. "Detonate Sector 4! Draw them into the kill zone! Now!" His hands flew over consoles, sweat beading on his brow as Dominion jamming threatened to choke their communications. Saboteurs, trained by Marcus himself, slipped behind enemy lines, disabling artillery, setting explosive charges on Dominion walkers. At Marcus's command, false transmissions lured enemy squads into dead ends and crossfire. The city became a labyrinth, every street a trap sprung by those who had once called it a prison. The fighting was savage and desperate. Syrah's armor ran slick with blood, hers and her enemies'. She fought at the head of her squad, the Accord's banner slung across her back, refusing to yield even as Dominion troopers pressed closer. When one of her lieutenants faltered, she seized his arm, dragged him to his feet. "No fear," she growled. "You stand with me." Inside the spire, the command center became the last bastion. Marcus's prosthetic legs sparked from a glancing blaster bolt, his hands moving slower as exhaustion took hold. Alarms blared, enemy breach teams hammered at the reinforced doors. Then, as the wall gave way, Marcus was thrown backward. He landed hard, pain flaring in his side, his prosthetic twisted and sparking. For a moment, his vision blurred, panic and helplessness creeping in. Syrah burst through the smoke, golden eyes wide with worry. She dropped to her knees beside him, ignoring the chaos raging around them. "Marcus!" Her voice was raw, her hands desperate as she checked his wounds. "Stay with me, you stubborn, infuriating, don't leave me!" He managed a weak grin, even as blood stained his shirt. "Wouldn't dream of it. You still owe me that drink, remember?" She laughed, the sound choked with tears. Her touch was fierce and gentle as she hauled him upright, slinging his arm over her shoulders. "Then fight, Shadow. I need you." Together they stumbled back into the fray. Syrah's daggers flashed, Marcus's voice rang out over the comms. Wounded, but unyielding. News of their stand swept through the defenders, kindling new courage. "They're still fighting! Hold the spire!" The night burned with energy bolts and explosions. Gorgon's defenders fell back street by street, but they never broke. In the final hours, Syrah and Marcus stood side by side in the command center, backs to the window, facing the Dominion's last assault. Syrah blocked a blaster bolt with her blade, countered with a savage kick. Marcus, despite his damaged leg, lobbed a makeshift grenade, sending Dominion troops scattering. Around them, Accord fighters rallied, pushing the enemy from the chamber. As dawn crested the horizon, a hush fell across the battlefield. The Dominion fleet hovered above the city, battered and burning. Slowly, like a retreating tide, the warships turned and withdrew, broken by the will of the people they had tried to crush. The sun rose over Gorgon, painting the spire in gold. Marcus and Syrah, battered and bloodied, climbed to the tower's summit. The city sprawled beneath them, rooftops smoking, banners tattered, but alive. Marcus wrapped his arm around Syrah's waist, pulling her close. She leaned into him, her tail curling around his hip, their scars a constellation of survival. For a long moment, they said nothing, letting the weight of victory settle between them. Syrah turned to him, her golden eyes soft and shining. "We built this together," she said, voice trembling with feeling. "Not as champion and shadow, but as equals." Marcus smiled, hope lighting his features. "You taught me how to fight. I just gave you a reason to stay." She laughed, low and fierce, then pulled him down for a kiss, slow and sure, a promise echoing over the battered city. Below, the people of Gorgon cheered. Above, the galaxy remained perilous, the future uncertain. But for the first time, Marcus and Syrah stood together not just as survivors, but as architects of something new. Gorgon, once a prison, now a beacon, blazed with promise. Their fight was not over, but as they faced the dawn side by side, the future was finally theirs. Our story ends here. Make sure you subscribe, press the like button, and tell us in the comments what stood out to you the most in this video. Your feedback means a lot to our team. You'll discover many more captivating stories on our channel. See you in the next one.